"I'm an innocent man. I did not kill Officer Zafransky." These were among the final words of Leo Jones before Florida executed him in 1998 for the murder of a police officer, crime he insisted he didn't commit. The case against him hinged on a confession he signed after hours of police beatings, a confession he immediately recanted once the officers left the room. What the jury never heard: 12 witnesses from the neighborhood identified another man as the shooter. Some even signed sworn affidavits stating they saw the other man fire the fatal shot. But their testimony was never presented in court. Leo Jones was executed anyway. This isn't fiction. This is the American justice system. May 23, 1981. Shortly after midnight in a predominantly black neighborhood in Jacksonville, Florida, Officer Thomas Zafransky, a 28-year-old white police officer, was sitting in his patrol car at an intersection when a rifle shot rang out from a nearby apartment building. The bullet struck Zafransky in the back of the head, killing him instantly. The shooting appeared to be an ambush, sniper attack on a police officer. Within hours, dozens of officers descended on the neighborhood. The shooting of a police officer demanded swift justice. Police focused their investigation on a nearby apartment building. On the second floor lived Leo Jones, a 29-year-old black man with a history of mental illness. At 3:30 a.m., just hours after the shooting, police entered Jones's apartment. They found a rifle that they claimed was the murder weapon, though ballistics tests were inconclusive. Jones was arrested and taken to the police station for questioning. What happened next would become the central issue in his case for the next 17 years. For over 12 hours, Leo Jones was interrogated by Jacksonville police officers. No attorney was present. No recording was made of the interrogation. When Jones finally emerged, he had visible injuries, bruises on his face and chest. He later claimed officers had beaten him, choked him, and threatened to kill him if he didn't confess. At the end of this marathon interrogation, Jones signed a confession admitting to shooting Officer Zafransky. But immediately after the officers left the room, Jones told a detective from another unit that he'd been beaten into confessing and was innocent. Former Detective Cleveland Smith said, "I saw Jones right after the interrogation. He was in bad shape. He told me he only signed the confession because they were beating him and he thought they would kill him if he didn't." The officer who led the interrogation, Linwood Mundy, had a documented history of brutality. He'd been suspended multiple times for using excessive force against suspects, particularly black suspects. Just 3 years after Jones's arrest, Mundy would be forced to resign from the Jacksonville Police Department following multiple brutality complaints. Within hours of signing the confession, Jones formally recanted, telling his court-appointed attorney that he'd been beaten and coerced. As police were forcing a confession from Leo Jones, something remarkable was happening in the neighborhood where the shooting occurred. Multiple residents came forward voluntarily to tell police they had seen who really shot Officer Zafransky, and it wasn't Leo Jones. 12 separate witnesses identified the shooter as Glenn Schofield, a neighborhood resident with a violent criminal history who had previously threatened to kill a police officer. Schofield lived in the same apartment building as Jones, just one floor above. Witnesses said they saw him fire a rifle from his window, then run downstairs and place the weapon in Jones's apartment. Witness Jewel Hamilton stated in a sworn affidavit, "I saw Glenn Schofield fire the rifle from his window, then he ran downstairs. Later I saw the police arrest Leo Jones, but they had the wrong man." Witness Daniel Cole said, "Schofield bragged about shooting the cop. He said he put the rifle in Jones's apartment because Jones was crazy and would take the fall." But police and prosecutors ignored these witnesses. None were called to testify at Jones's trial. Their statements were dismissed as attempts to protect Jones. In October 1981, just 5 months after the shooting, Leo Jones went on trial for his life in Duval County. The prosecution's case rested almost entirely on Jones's confession. No fingerprints linked him to the rifle. Ballistics tests were inconclusive. No gunpowder residue was found on his hands or clothing. The prosecutor told the jury, "The defendant confessed to this crime. What more do you need to know?" Jones's court-appointed attorney had limited resources to investigate the case or locate the witnesses who had identified Schofield as the shooter. On the stand, Jones testified about the beating he received from police, showing the jury his still visible injuries. But without corroborating witnesses, his claims were dismissed. After deliberating for just a few hours, the all-white jury found Leo Jones guilty of first-degree murder. When asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, Jones maintained his innocence. "I did not kill that officer. I was beaten into confessing." The judge sentenced him to death by electrocution. As he was led from the courtroom, Jones turned to his family and said, "Keep fighting. The truth will come out someday." For 17 years, Leo Jones sat on death row, filing appeals and maintaining his innocence. Each appeal was denied, despite mounting evidence supporting Jones's claims of innocence and police brutality. From prison, Jones wrote, "They're going to execute me based on a confession beaten out of me, while ignoring a dozen witnesses who saw who really did it. How is this justice?" His attorney, Martin McLean, said, "This case represents a complete breakdown of the justice system. We had 12 witnesses who saw another man commit this crime, and none of them were allowed to testify." During the appeals process, new evidence emerged about Officer Mundy's history of brutality. Multiple suspects had come forward claiming Mundy had beaten them to extract confessions. Former Officer James Davis said, "Mundy had a reputation for solving cases quickly by whatever means necessary. There were rumors about his interrogation techniques, but nobody wanted to speak up because he was getting results." In his final months, supporters gathered signatures for clemency, arguing that executing someone based on a coerced confession while ignoring multiple eyewitnesses was a grave injustice. The Florida Board of Executive Clemency denied Jones's petition. Governor Lawton Chiles declined to intervene. March 24, 1998. After 17 years proclaiming his innocence, Leo Jones' time had run out. For his final meal, he requested fried chicken, French fries, and vanilla ice cream. In his cell, he wrote a final statement to his family. "I am innocent. Keep fighting for the truth. I love you all." At 7 a.m., witnesses were seated, among them journalists, prison officials, and family members of both Jones and Officer Zafransky. At 7:07 a.m., Leo Jones was led into the execution chamber. He was strapped into Florida's electric chair known as Old Sparky. When asked if he had any final words, Jones said, "I am an innocent man. I did not kill Officer Zafransky. I pray that someday the truth will come out and my family will be given the apology they deserve." At 7:11 a.m., the switch was thrown. At 7:19 a.m., Leo Jones was pronounced dead. Florida had carried out its 39th execution since reinstating the death penalty. Just 1 year after Jones's execution, the Florida Supreme Court ruled in a separate case that confessions obtained through physical coercion were inadmissible, regardless of their accuracy. Studies have since shown that approximately 25% of DNA exonerations involve false confessions, many obtained through coercive techniques. Innocence Project attorney Barry Scheck said the Jones case represents a perfect storm of injustice: a coerced confession, suppressed witness testimony, and a rush to judgment in the killing of a police officer. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia once claimed there has not been a single case, not one, in which it's clear that a person was executed for a crime he did not commit. The Leo Jones case directly challenges this claim. 12 eyewitnesses identified another man as the killer, witnesses whose testimony was never heard by the jury. Former prosecutor James Curtis said, "Looking back at this case with what we know now about false confessions and police coercion, I have serious doubts about Jones's guilt. If I had known then what I know now, I would not have sought the death penalty." Judge Gerald Cogan, who reviewed the case, said, "If there is ever a case that should cause us to question our system of justice, it is the Leo Jones case. The evidence of his innocence was substantial, yet he was executed anyway." Leo Jones was executed based on a confession he immediately recanted, a confession obtained after hours of unrecorded interrogation by an officer later forced to resign for brutality. 12 witnesses identified another man as the killer. None were called to testify at trial. Jones's last words included, "I am an innocent man." The evidence suggests he may have been telling the truth. As Jones wrote in his final appeal, "The state is not executing the killer of Officer Zafransky. They are executing a man who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and who didn't have the strength to withstand a police beating." This investigation took months of research, interviews with witnesses, and examination of court records. If you believe in uncovering the truth behind America's most disturbing wrongful executions, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Next week, we examine the shocking case of Gary Graham, executed at 36 for a murder based on a single eyewitness, despite no physical evidence, multiple alibi witnesses, and serious concerns about the fairness of his trial. Join our community demanding accountability from our justice system, because sometimes the truth emerges only after it's too late.